Alrighty, so welcome to hard mode Dread Council, last boss of Dread Palace. This is a relatively tricky boss. I want to say, other than the last few fights of Ravagers and Temple of Sacrifice, this might be the hardest fight in hard mode. There's definitely a lot of mechanics. It's a decent healing check and a decent DPS check. It definitely stands apart from the rest of the hard mode rabble, from all the way from EC to Dread Fortress. So I'm going to be going over a lot. There is a ton of things that DPS can do in this particular fight, and I'll be talking about all DPS mechanics. There's a ton of things that DPS can do to maximize their DPS and to contribute the best to taking down this fight. So there is a difference between maximizing your DPS and just pure fluffing, right? So sometimes fluffing is good. And on this particular fight, it kind of is, but it also kind of isn't. Now, the core mechanic behind the first phase and the third phase is that you need to push the Dread Masters at a steady, even rate. Now, for this first phase, that's 55%. You want to make sure all the Dread Masters are at 55% before you push. That gives you enough buffer time to get the last one down before the first one that you pushed comes back down, right? So 55 is a good number. What that means is that you're not going to be able to fluff all the time. So if you're an AoE spec, you're almost never going to get to AoE. If you're a dot spec like me, you do get to dot fluff on a lot of different things to get everything down for most of the phase, but towards the end of the phase, you got to be careful what you dot. If something's already at like 52% and we're not ready to push, if something else is at 67 and one's at 52, I really can't dot the thing at 52%, right? So fluffing's great, but not in every circumstance, and you have to understand that too. So I'm going to be talking about how to improve and how to maximize your DPS, but not at the expense of actually failing mechanics, right? And that's pretty much the only situation where that's actually going to happen, at least in this fight. So I'm going to screw up a lot in this fight. There's a bunch of things I do wrong, mostly because I can't even remember the last time I did this in hard mode, so I'm still thinking, like, right off the bat, if you see where I'm standing, I'm right here. The whole group is right over here ready to attack Bestia, because I totally forgot that in hard mode they drop one at a time, and I was expecting to take Raptus right off the bat, because in Nightmare mode, they all jump down at the same time. I should have been right over here, ready to attack Bestia when she jumps down, and then move backwards in preparation for Raptus, because one other Dreadmaster jumps down after Bestia before Raptus. So I screw up. I lose a little bit of DPS right off the bat, and you'll see that right when we actually jump into it. I'm ready. I've already targeted Raptus, and nothing happens, so I'm like freaking out. I gotta get in range to actually attack. So there's that. Everybody wants to be focusing on Bestia right off the bat, so we can attack her. Bestia is really simple. She's the easiest one. All she has is a knockback for the tank, and the DPS just drill her. That's it, right? Now, we'll actually just keep watching, and I'll talk about the mechanics basically as they go and how to maximize your DPS, right? So there's the first knockback, and at this point, Tyrants should be coming down. Now, I'll get one more Cull on him, and I should be putting dots on Tyrants because I got my pillar. Actually, not Tyrants. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Calpheus. I don't know what I'm talking about. Now Raptus is down, right? Now, I should be switching straight to Raptus. And you can see we have a stupid amount of DPS, so we're already at like 60-something% with Bestia. At that point, pretty much everybody should be switching to Calpheus over there. And I should be on Raptus, and you'll see I switch over to Raptus. I could do a hard-hitting attack to actually get his aggro really quick, which for some reason doesn't happen. But he gets over here, and I'm a kiter, right? So my role in this fight is actually to kite Raptus around so the tanks don't have to deal with them, which in hard mode is very important because tanks can't deal with Raptus. So basically what the kiter does is it just goes around and actually just, kites and dodges this stupid purple shit. Snipers are really good for kiting because they have a lot of, in Virulence at least, You have a lot of abilities that you can use on the move. You have Entrenched to completely negate his knockback. You have his roll to get away from him. And you have a bunch of other stuff like survivability from evasion and shield probe, which you can use quite often. Now here's the thing, I screw up really early here, so you're not going to get to see me kite all that much. So the major mechanic for healers is about to happen here pretty soon. Clipped my coal for no reason really, I could have probably got the rest of that thing off. And right about here. Now here we have the healer mechanic, which is 4 dots that get put on people from Tyrants, right? He casts it, so the person on Tyrants, this person can actually call it out, but it's no big deal. It really isn't. Now you notice my positioning, right? I'm all the way down here on this bridge. I think this is Styrax's bridge. And the healer's all the way over here. And as you can see, these are the 2 healers right here. They're out of range of me. You can see they're grayed out. They're out of range, right? Now, the reason for this is because I legitimately thought that evasion still took care of it. I can't even remember if it ever did, but for some reason I just thought I was good. I was not good, and you could see I popped evasion here, and it didn't work, so I'm desperately trying to get back to the healers, but it's too late. I got the skull, which, you know, I was fucked. So this is where we're in full panic mode, and I believe Deadshots takes him. Yeah, Deadshots takes him. Now here's the thing. Dying resets your aggro table, so I have no aggro on Raptus. So screw Raptus. I'm on to Tyrants because he's at the highest health right now. So I'm just shooting at Tyrants and Deadshots dealing with Raptus, right? The really important thing to dying is recovery. You want to get right back in there. You want to make sure that your energy is topped off because sometimes you spawn with like no energy. You want to make sure you're buffed. And you want to make sure that you're targeting the right thing. You want to do that really quickly. So don't waste any time dilly-dallying when you die because you want to get right back into the action really quick. So we're at 60% on Tyrants here. Bestia is actually still pretty high. Oh no, that's actually... We pushed Bestia on accident and Bestia came back down. So I'm switching back to Bestia to get her back down. You can see the healer thing came back out, so I'm right next to the healers. If you're not kiting and you're a ranged DPS, this is exactly where you need to be. You need to be right next to the healers. There's no reason for you to be anywhere else. If you need to attack Calpheus, go ahead and go under the shield, but honestly melee should be able to take care of most of that. If you're attacking Tyrants, he's always within range of the healers in the middle. If you're attacking Raptus, the kiter should be able to get him down to low enough health. So honestly, as a ranged DPS, like, you should be with the healers. So you can see here I'm just helping out, pushing Calpheus because they're all at 55%. I'm just going under there, but he's low enough. So we go to Bestia. Raptus just got pushed. There's a specific order, but we totally fucked it up because we didn't really care. But yeah, we're done. The cool thing about Calpheus is that it's the same thing with the shield. Since you can't do damage to him, but you can dot him. And my dots like don't do anything. Well, they do a little bit, but not like for a couple ticks, right? So here we're starting phase 2, which is Brontes and Styrak, right? Now there is a very, very optimal and good way to do this as a Brilliance sniper, but unfortunately we have so much DPS that it didn't even matter. So Styrak is first, but I decided to stick on Brontes because she has a smaller buoyancy kind of range thing. She doesn't push Styrak back as far as Styrak pushes Brontes, so it's better to splash the dots from Brontes than it is on Styrak. You can see I'm putting coal on both of them. I'm kind of doing damage on both of them. But Styrak is the main priority when they first come down. You can see I swapped to Brontes to do my dots because I know they'd splash on Styrak. And here I actually screw up. For some reason the corrosive dart didn't actually get on Styrak when it should have. Actually, I'm curious as to why that actually happened. So Styrak's got the corrosive dart and corrosive grenade, but they're about to fall off. And then I switched to Broadus. I put the dot on, and then I put I just hit the corrosive grenade, and the corrosive grenade splashed on Styrak, but it didn't get the corrosive dart when it should. That's one of the perks in Verulians, is that your corrosive grenade splashes with the corrosive dart if it lands on a target with corrosive dart, and she has corrosive dart, so I'm not sure what happened there, but it actually should have got a corrosive dart. So half of a dry coal, but it's fine. Honestly, it should have had corrosive dart. I don't know what happened there. So Styrak is at like 5% now. At this point, all DPS should really be focusing on Brontes, and the reason for that is just splash. Like I was just talking about, like corrosive dart and corrosive grenade is going to be on Styrak. You've got splash damage from the tanks, like constantly. You have splash damage from like half the specs in the game really have splash damage, so you really don't have to worry too much about Styrak. Once he's down to like 5%, just switch to Brontes. You see that 5% lasted like in no time. And Brontes is pretty much just a straight burn in hard mode, at least. A much different story in Nightmare, but in hard mode it's really just burn, burn, burn until 25 or 15, I guess. Here, you want to stay away from the middle. This is a really important thing. You want to stay out of like 3-meter range.
What do you want me to?
Now, you'll be looking at this from a kiter's perspective in 4-3, and I don't screw it up quite as badly as I did in the first phase. But as a kiter, you kind of want to get to the throne, grab the crystal like I'm doing here, and that makes sure you have aggro on Raptus the entire time. And I think you get a damage buff against them, I can't remember, or a damage reduction against them. Can't remember, doesn't matter. But you pretty much just stick to Raptus as a kiter. The cool thing about fluffing damage in this particular fight is that as me as a dot spec, I can switch over to Tyrant and just add dots to him anytime I want. And you can see I kind of I kind of delay that roll just a little bit to get a couple more casts off. You can see I switch to Tyrant to put some dots, and then I switch back to Raptus. Or I don't. I don't. And you can see I move just slightly, so I didn't have to delay my coal any longer than I would have had to. Get my coal. You can constantly see I'm trying to keep my coal on cooldown as much as possible because it's my highest damage dealing attack. I want to keep it on cooldown to maximize my DPS. So if that means walking a little bit less than I should, kiting a little bit less than I should, that's what it's going to take. You can see in between my coals is when I put my dots on things. Now, here's the burn phase, right? I totally screwed this up. I could have done way better on this. I was attacking the wrong target, and I was doing suppressive fire when I should have been, but it's fine. Technically, suppressive fire is optimal damage for this fight, but it's not optimal survivability, because you want to actually kill one of the Dreadmasters as quickly as humanly possible, right? So as soon as one of them goes down, the healers have to deal with way less damage. But I had faith in the healers, and there was only 7 of us anyway, so like I decided to do suppressive fire. As you can see, I did orbital strike, which I should have precasted, but it's fine. Head in. I'm doing suppressive fire for really no reason, but I should have been on Raptus. I switched to Calpheus for some reason. Put a coal on Raptus, immediately switched to Tyrants, put the dots on him. Dot dot, weakening blast, take down coal. As soon as the coal is done, I switch to Bestia, because he's dead now. Do some lethal shots, because by the time I got to Bestia, she was at like 6%. By the time I put my dot dot and coal, or dot dot weakening blast, she would have been dead. So I'm doing lethal shots right now, because there's no point in dotting up something that's like at 6%, even though she's super high priority, and you know, dot dot weakening blast, take down coal is a lot of damage. There's no point. She's about to die. So I'm just using my more expensive but quicker, more instant damage, which is that lethal shot. And every class is gonna have something like that. You need to decide. You need to figure out which abilities those are, which ones you need to prioritize for which situations. And you see right here, I'm using some fillers just to get that coal in there. I could have done Weakening Blast, but I think Takedown or an extra lethal shot probably would have been more damage, which I did. I did an extra lethal shot instead of Takedown at the end there, which I think is more damage. But yeah, that's pretty much the fight in hard mode. There's not much to it. There's a lot to it. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm tired, but as far as maximizing your DPS goes, there's so many different positions in this fight, and I really only covered what's it called, kiting, and only then like really half-assed kiting. But we'll rewind it a little bit, and I'll talk a little bit about the other positions that you'll be doing, like especially in the first phase. So first phase here. Oh, this is the push. Here's a good part. So we've got, I think this is both tanks. No. Thursday is DPS, right? So this is the melee DPS that's on Calpheus. And here's the tricky part. When Calpheus is actually standing on a red circle, he takes damage reduction, right? So if you're the melee DPS that's on Calpheus, it could be really difficult for you if the tank doesn't necessarily know what he's doing. So if the tank is letting Calpheus linger on these circles, then your DPS is going to be trash. And there's not much you can do about it because you need to stay on Calpheus. The thing is Calpheus's health is probably going to move down the slowest. If you're on Calpheus, your DPS is probably going to be the worst. Unless the kiter is really bad and the tank is really, really good. That's tanking Calpheus. If that's not the case, then your DPS is probably going to suffer. But it's not a big deal because even if the tank is like completely terrible, like the uptime on the circles, it really isn't that much. Point being, if you want to maximize your DPS on Calpheus, it's really about saving your hard-hitting attacks when he's sitting on a red circle, right? That could be kind of difficult, right? So not every class has such a loose priority to allow you to actually save, one of your hard-hitting attacks a couple global cooldowns, right? So right off the top of my head, I can think of Marksman Sniper, which is really easy if you wanted to delay ambush, right? So if he's standing on a red circle, you could just throw in another snipe, or a couple of lethal shots or something like that. Sorry, rifle shots. But if you're playing another class like probably this one right here, I think he's doing infiltration, right? He needs to get those stacks up for the discharge, right? So he's got to sacrifice global cooldowns to get that charge up, and some of those attacks are actually really powerful. So that's a problem for him. And not much more I can really say about that other than just follow Calpheus and your DPS is going to be shit. But we'll turn it around. So here, I'm on Bestia right now. Bestia is the easiest thing. If you're melee, all it really means, if you're melee, this is actually really tricky for melee because Bestia could potentially like jump around a lot, especially in Nightmare, because in Nightmare the tank actually has to get knocked back. In hard mode, it doesn't really need to get knocked back. So as a melee, Bestia could potentially just jump like 40 meters away from you, and that's a loss in DPS unless you know exactly when it's going to happen and when you're supposed to be target swapping, right? And that's actually really easy to see. If Bestia knocks back the tank, or if you hear the tank saying knockback, you should be ready to switch targets. That's probably going to be Calpheus if they're in range, or Tyrants if they're within range, or maybe even Raptus if he's in range and the kiter has enough threat on him, right? You don't want to go ham on Raptus. If you take aggro, you're screwed. But yeah, if you're attacking Bestia, just keep in mind that if you're melee, you want to have a tab target available, like close by, so you can jump to something and immediately put damage on it while the tank is getting Bestia back in position, right? The worst thing about melee in this fight is the fact that everything moves around so much, particularly Tyrants. If you're melee stuck on Tyrants, it could be kind of a pain because he could teleport when one of your jumps is on cooldown or something like that. So that's something you want to look out for. And if your jump is on cooldown, you want to save, your very few and far between ranged attacks as filler while you're actually getting in range. And then you have Raptus, which is really simple. If you're melee, just don't stand in this red. when it comes to Tyrants, you know, like I said before, he jumps around a lot, so range should be sticking to him. Melee has the easiest time with Calpheus and Raptus to an extent, but a little bit harder time with Bestia and Tyrants because they move around so much. As far as range goes, if you're ranged and you're not kiting, like I said, stand right here. That's all you do. And you can kind of see what the other DPS are doing right here. So the Fluff is right, which was a really heavy hitter, right? He's hitting Raptus right here because Raptus is already like 60%. He's not going to take aggro. They're all kind of, all the DPS are kind of like spread out, trying to push these guys as evenly as possible, get them all pushed. They're all on Raptus right now, pushing him. Raptus is the first one to get pushed, I believe. Yeah, there he goes.
Fuck.
Tyrants goes, then Bestia, and that's it. So, yeah, I don't want to go through the whole fight again. I'm just thinking there's probably a lot of DPS classes and roles that I probably didn't cover all that well, particularly for maximizing your DPS. I think for this phase, I definitely could have done a lot better for Bronzes and Styrak. But Bronzes does jump around a lot. So that's why DPS, especially melee DPS, really want to stay on Styrak. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to go through the whole thing again. If you got comments, questions, or critiques, especially critiques, feel free to leave them below. And if this helped, I'm happy for you. I'm really hoping that the endgame community for the Old Republic gets better in the next few months. So here's to that. Thank you for watching, and this has been the Dread Palace hard mode guides. So have a good one.